Their mission was kind of to break me. My husband was in school and I had one kid and there was another kid on the way. I couldn't quit, but I wonder if I didn't have that, would I have quit? Would I have given up?
A lot of girls think, especially if they're within a community and they want to have a family, that it's not an option to go be the director of engineering in a Fortune 500 company is not even something they think is possible. And clearly you did.
If you're going to be successful in your career, you have to learn people and you have to learn leadership. Because in that world, there are few people, technical people that want to be leaders. That's when I started getting opportunities.
During this time, your husband, where's his story at in parallel to yours?
One of his professors said to him, you have a gift. I really think you should specialize. We were getting a lot of pushback. We were trying to both pursue becoming the best versions of ourselves. So we thought, let's do it. It was kind of against a lot of direction from close family and friends. Don't always believe what everyone says.
Welcome to Inspired to Lead. We'd like to thank our friends at Roth & Co., innovators in accounting and business advisory, for making this conversation possible. We're coming to you from my hometown, Chicago. I'm your host, Talia Mashiach. Today, I'm joined by Deena Stein, CEO of the Stein Center. Deena, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you. I know today you work with your husband in the Stein Center, and it's such an incredible story. But before you became the CEO of the Stein Center and worked side by side in this incredible new idea of a dental office, you have the whole career before that. Deena is one of my best friends and this incredible mother, wife, and amazing businesswoman. And I just have to share the story because I think that it says so much about, I want to kick us off in that way. So our boys were in the same class for many, many years. And Deena, you didn't grow up here, so we did not know each other. And my son would always say, Mom, you should really get to know Deena Stein. You would really, really enjoy. She's a big businesswoman. Also, I think you would really enjoy getting to know her. And for so many years, probably also because you were so busy in your life and I was so busy in my life, we just whenever we'd see each other, we knew who each other were. Our boys knew each other, but we just didn't have the time really to invest. And I don't know, probably 5 years ago, maybe, Deena, something around that.
Yep.
Finally, my son's let's have the Steins over for a Shabbos lunch. And you came over. And we just didn't stop. I remember that first lunch, we didn't stop talking. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a kindred spirit that I never knew. And I was like, this is amazing. And then we went to the JWE Changemakers event together a couple of months later, and we flew together. And I feel bad for everybody who was around us on the plane because we just talked the entire time, the entire trip to Florida. We just talked and talked and talked and talked. And ever since then, this has been an incredibly special friendship for me. And I know you're a super private person. And the last thing you really want is to be able to share your story. But I really appreciate that you also want to be able to create an impact. And I really am so excited. You have such a unique story and you're such an amazing person. And I think you're such an inspiration to me. And I want the opportunity for everybody else to be inspired by you.
Thank you, Talia. I don't think I can match that. But our friendship is very, very important to me as well. And you are quite the inspiration as well. I think when the first time I met you, I was like, who is this and how does she work? Because every idea she gets, she actually puts into place and does. And I was like, I haven't met many people like that who just get things done at a different level. And so completely inspirational. The stuff you did with JWE, it just was I was in awe and continue to be to see what you do. And as we have our business talks and hear what you do and how you do what you do and how you manage that with your family. So very, very special friendship to me as well.
I think that, and I talk about this a lot with people, is for me, I always very much separated up until, probably that time frame, very much separated my work life and my personal life. And my very good friends, they really didn't quite know exactly what I did. I never wanted to talk about work we just had a good time together. And my work life was my work life. They were completely separate. And I feel like you were the first really close friend of mine where those kinds of things came together, where really being able to talk about business and and kind of the experiences. And we still do. As I was walking in, I'm like, okay, I've got 5 fires that I'm putting out, and I could tell you that, and you so appreciate it. And, share also within our community and our children. And so it's like very special. And I feel like what's been really amazing about the JWE has been an opportunity for there to be additional friendships like that, where there are women that are experiencing things very similar. And I mean, amazing to have all different kinds of friends, but there is something really nice about being able for someone to appreciate like the whole cycle, the whole circle of your life.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories about you is when...
Oh my gosh, people are going to find out more. I'm like always interviewing the other guests, and they're going to be like, wait, now we get to find out more things about Talia.
Yes. So one of my favorite stories about you was everybody thought you were a party planner.
Yeah.
And so I remember one of our conversations, you're like, you know what? It's okay. I just let everybody think I'm a party planner. But then when I spoke to you and I heard about what you did, I was like, she's not a party planner. Even though party planning is an amazing career, an amazing job, it's just not what you do. And so when I learned that you actually run a fintech company that does support some businesses that do events, I was like, that's super cool, but it's so not what you do and so not what your skill set is. And so I thought that was super cool. And then when I was talking to other people, they'd be like, oh, you're friends with Talia. We should call her. She has a party planning business. And I was like, oh, let me tell you, Talia is like the CEO of this incredible company, but it's not a party planning business.
Yeah, you know what? I really don't mind that. And then I decided that I was going to be uncomfortable and take risks and do this podcast, which is basically, talking a lot more than I normally would. And I know for you, and that's why you're doing this, because I'm like, hey, I did 2 seasons and share, and I really do it for the sole purpose of being able to have an impact and, trying to get you to do that along with me. But I'll tell you, I mean, if people even ask, oh, are you doing another season? And when I go and people do reach out, which I so appreciate, and say, I want you to know that I love the podcast. I listen to it. It's so inspiring, especially when I hear from 16-year-olds and 17-year-old girls that are thinking about the careers that they have, that this gives them different ideas, that it gives them the aspiration to be something more than maybe the message they've been told they could be. So it's what gives me the motivation to do it. And I know that's the reason why you're here. Deena, you have such a unique story. And I really want to start a little bit from the beginning, where you grew up, how you thought about the career that you wound up in initially, until we get to where you are today.
Okay. I grew up in St. Louis. And went to high school, actually went to college there as well. I went to Stern for 1 year. I met my husband when I was at Stern, and then we ended up moving back to St. Louis. And so I graduated from WashU with a degree in chemical engineering. And I wanted to go into actually be a chemical engineer. I chose that because I loved math and science, but I didn't want a doctor because I didn't want to be a doctor because I didn't love that lifestyle. I just wanted to be able to be a little bit more around. And I didn't want to go into that. So I loved chemical engineering. It was actually great. My first job out of college was at Procter Gamble. And it was just such an eye-opening experience for me. I worked in the Cascade dishwasher plant. We made the powdered dishwasher soap, and I actually got to be an engineer that was involved in designing how to make it consistently, so that when you pour out your dishwasher soap, you get those same size particles.
You sit in a lab there? Is that what it is? And you play with all these different...
So it was actually a manufacturing facility. So 10-story building with making tons and tons of powder every single day. So it wasn't the lab design phase. It was the actual manufacturing of it. So, you make 1 million boxes in, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks. It's been a while, so I don't remember the details. But it was really cool. I really, really loved it. It was just an exposure to a world that I didn't really know. I had to lead a team. So one of the things they do with new engineers is they always give them employees. And one of my favorite stories was I had a bunch of union employees that were in their 50s. And their mission was kind of to break me. And so I was a 22-year-old college kid with one kid already. And their goal was to kind of make my life miserable. And I remember leaving every single day from work crying, just crying like, I want to quit, I want to quit, I want to quit. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. I love the engineering piece, but the people were just, it was a 24/7 operation. So you had 3 shifts and everybody, they didn't want me to succeed, these people that I was leading. And so it was like this eye-opening experience on what are people like and how do you lead people. The thing that's pretty amazing about the company is they were very supportive. So you have a leadership team that's there to back you and teach you, how do you lead people? How do you lead people that don't necessarily...
Why didn't they want you to succeed? Just because they felt like you were 24 and they were 50 and you don't know what you're doing?
Why are you coming in here? Who's this kind of like young punk coming in to tell us what to do? And I wasn't telling them what to do. It was just, here's another young person coming in with a college degree. And
they were on the floor, actually.
They were like, forklift drivers. Yeah. And they were incredible at what they did. They were like amazing. Yeah. But I had to learn what they did and learn how they did what they did so that I could help put process improvements in place. And so in order to be successful, I had to get their buy-in. And it was really challenging. I mean, it was really probably one of the hardest things in my career was trying to figure out how to be successful. And at the time, my husband was in school and I had one kid and there was another kid on the way. And I had no option for failure because I was supporting us. So there was like, I couldn't quit. And sometimes people say, wow, you had so much going on. But I wonder, if I didn't have that, would I have quit? Would I have given up? Knowing that I had no alternative, I think helped push me through to say, I have to find a way to be successful in this world. And I had incredible leaders who like taught me what to do, how to lead, how to get buy-in. And one of the things I did was I walked in and I was like, I'll drive the forklift, teach me how to do the job. And so eventually when I did that consistently day after day, people started to trust me. It took a long time. It took consistency. And then they started to really trust me. And then I would say, after a couple months, one of them I remember came over to me and was like, if we did something like this, we could do it in half the time. And so all of a sudden now they were starting to share with me and tell me ideas of how to do things better because now there was trust. And then I was able to like implement those ideas. And when I did, then I got like all these accolades. Oh my gosh, you're so amazing. Like, how did you come up with that idea? We're so much more efficient. We could reduce our rates, like all these benefits. And I was like, all I did was get some people to trust me and listen and then help help implement what these ideas were in their head that maybe no one ever listened to before. And that was really
that's leadership, right?
Exactly.
Like, that's a great example of leadership. And I think what I'm hearing too, is that you were the college degree and they weren't, and they probably felt, almost a little bit like, oh, you think less than us. And so therefore, why should we help you? And so there was like a self-respect, right? There's a respect issue. And when you started to drive the forklift or to do the things, it wasn't like beneath you, right? So all of a sudden, wait, she's not acting like she's greater than us. Now we're on the same team, we're together. So that was really super smart because I also see that in one of the businesses that we own. We have a warehouse and we have a general manager and that whole team. And one of the ways in which it's successful and the way they operate is for them, you could always sense that there's like that, oh, are you better than us? You're not better than us. Like that's the nature. And so it's like the constantly proactive of, no, we're all one team. You're really important and we're going to succeed together. And to figure that out so young is awesome.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I felt like was so amazing about Procter & Gamble was they wanted their leaders to learn that right away. It wasn't like go be an engineer and go do all the technical stuff, which is super cool. It was also like, if you're going to be successful in your career, you have to learn people and you have to learn leadership.
Yeah.
And that was like the first thing that they wanted to see is like, can you learn that and can you be successful in that world? And I feel like that was like one of the biggest things I learned in my career. And I was like so fortunate to be able to learn that at like such a young age, because I would say even today, I operate on the mindset of, I don't care about titles. Titles are not what I'm about. It's about, we have a job to get done and we have a team to work together to execute it. And no matter what the person's title is, doesn't matter in terms of being able to deliver incredible results.
So a good leader checks their ego at the door.
Exactly.
And if you want to be successful and you need people behind you, then that's a really important part. So what was it like for you? I know you said you're well, we'll get to the whole story that you're, that your husband is a dentist, and but how was that for you with having your husband in school and one child with another one on the way? Like, how did you have family with you? Like, how did you structure that support to be able to do that? And did you feel like such a tremendous pressure on yourself?
So when in the very early years, the first 5 years we were married, we lived in St. Louis, and I had my parents. And my oldest son is very, very close with my mother. It's because she spent a lot of time with him. So I had a really, really good support system then. Actually, all my kids are close with my mother, but I had a very, very strong support system. After my husband finished dental school, we ended up moving to Columbus, Ohio. And I kind of will say that was kind of a tough decision for us because one of his professors said to him, you have a gift. You're really talented in it when it comes to like a certain specialty. I really think you should specialize. And we were getting a lot of pushback of, hey, you have 2 kids. It's time for you to start working. Going to school for another 3 years is going to be really hard. And it was really hard on me working full time with 2 little kids. It definitely was like challenging. I had my mom and her support, so that made a huge difference, but it still was like a lot. But my husband and I were like, we felt that he had a gift, and if we didn't pursue that, then that would be such an unfortunate miss.
Was like the plan with the 2 of you, was it always that his career was going to be the ones that you made, meaning like you were going to follow his career and then you'd find the job, or your career would kind of come second? Because I feel like my daughter, her husband now is a resident, but really they decided like his career is the primary. If they need to move, they're going to move. Like, and she does also have to work as you do, as you did to support, because he's in school full time. So she has to support them, and she's dealing with the kids and all of that. But she's basically, if he wound up in Chicago, but if he had to move, then she was going to go with him. And like, that was going to be, so how was that dynamic for you? And you both had, like, you had this big career also that you were starting out.
I think we were so young. I don't think we really had that real conversation about whose career is the main career. I don't think we really knew. I think it was like we were trying to both pursue becoming the best versions of ourselves when it came to our careers and our family. And so the thought was, I can get a different position at a different company and do my engineering thing, and he could pursue his passion and his training. And so we thought, let's do it. And it was kind of against a lot of direction from close family and friends, but definitely the best decision we made.
How did you handle the kids without your mom in Columbus?
It was really hard. I should have had better support and better help. I hired help. The kids were in daycare, but those 3 years were really, really hard. If I was going to do it again, I would try to get better help. I would say that would be my one thing in life, is having the best help in all aspects of your life is really, really important, so that when you are present for your kids, you're totally present with them. And so that the time you have with them is super special, and you're not worried about the mundane stuff. I would say that was definitely something that those years was tough.
And then you wound up in Chicago.
Right. So then he finished residency. And at that point I was working in actually, I was making infant formula. And so
for AbbVie, right?
It was Abbott at the time.
Okay.
Abbott at the time. So we were there, and then it was, we knew we didn't want to stay in Columbus. It's a very, very small community, beautiful community, but small community. And we wanted something a little bigger for our kids. We actually looked at either St. Louis or Chicago, and Abbott was like located in Chicago, and so I had a great opportunity to just transfer into pharmaceutical manufacturing. And then AbbVie actually found a position in Chicago as well, so we decided we're going to do Chicago, and definitely the best decision we made.
Well, I know. I mean, I started off by introducing you as the CEO of the Stein Center. So we know that you wind up ultimately with him at the Stein Center. So Chicago. So you're working at Abbott. Talk to us about that journey, because I know that's really where you really grew, and you had a large team. Like you were a pretty senior person at Abbott.
So I started in like pharmaceutical manufacturing, and at some point it switched to AbbVie. But really, that's where I had the opportunity to start leading larger teams. One of the things I learned about myself was that I was fascinated with people. And when the engineering stuff started getting a little boring to me. So it was like, okay, yeah, you can size a tank. Yeah, you could do a project. Yeah, you could build this. But it was kind of predictable, but the people, they seemed a little less predictable, like a little bit of a harder problem to solve.
So it was like a challenge.
Yes. I really started to try to learn and understand people. Because in that world, there are few people, technical people that want to be leaders. So when there are people that are interested in that, there becomes opportunities.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I know we'll talk about obviously leaving this big corporate career and going to be an entrepreneur. But I think a lot of times we talk a lot on this about entrepreneurship and building companies, but there's also huge, great opportunities to work in large corporations. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what does that look like to get your first job in one of these Fortune 500 companies? How do you like grow? Are there mentors? Like, because ultimately you wound up in a very senior role through this journey. So what's that like? And how do you get successful in these companies?
Yeah, I typically started like at low levels, and I was promoted.
You just apply? Or did you know somebody that helped you get the job?
I mean, I applied out of college and I got a great job.
Yeah.
And
no connection. You just sort of
no connection. I mean, I was coming from a school that was very well regarded.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much nowadays. I mean, that was like 25 years ago, 26 maybe. So I don't know if today that's as like the same as it used to be. I do know like internships are a really big deal.
Yeah.
So if you get an internship, then you can get, then your opportunity to get hired is like higher. And I know internships are you apply online.
Yeah.
You just apply. I mean, sometimes connections are great, but with some of these companies, it's just apply online and
try to get
in.
Yeah. Once you're in, so you're in Chicago at Abbott. What could you think of was like some of the biggest things that helped you grow? And like, what was your sort of ultimate position in Abbott before you decided to leave? And how big was your team?
So I would say, well, when I started there, I started in a kind of like a middle management or I would say maybe like a lower level management position. And they actually gave me some incredible leadership development training. And so I was selected to be part of a program for leadership development. And that was unbelievable, completely humbling experience in my life. Like one of the hardest things I went through, where you really learn that so many things about yourself that need to change in order for you to really be a good leader. And so I felt super fortunate to be in their leadership development program. It helped me so much. And so I got into that program and I really started working on myself. I had an incredible mentor, like the most incredible mentor.
Did they assign you or you found that mentor on your own?
A little bit of both. I still keep in touch with her. She's like someone.
Is that a common thing in large companies that they try to have senior people mentor junior people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I really I had to work on myself a ton and work on my leadership skills. And through time, I was able to take on bigger positions. By the time I left, I was a director of U.S. packaging operations. So it was a team of a little over 300. So I had, managers and supervisors under me, and then, the people that worked in the manufacturing facility. So it was a large organization. So learning how to manage through levels, and learning how to manage a large organization in an enormous organization.
Yeah, lots of politics.
Yes.
Lots of
Yes.
You really got to like use a lot of skill there to maneuver into.
Yes.
And what was it like as a woman in this large company at that time? Did you feel like that was an advantage for you or a disadvantage, or it didn't matter?
I think it depended on the person and the moment. So there were people in the company that were old school, and then there were people that were progressive. So I think just knowing who the people are, knowing who your audience is all the time, knowing what you're trying to accomplish. One of the things that my leader / she was actually my boss also, my mentor, one of the things she always taught me was, what are you trying to accomplish? And success equals accomplishing it and getting your goal like completed, not necessarily how you get it done. So if you wanted to get it done through plan A, but with the crowd and the people you're trying to execute with, you're never going to get it done that way. So you do plan B. And even though plan B might not be what you want, success is not how you got there. Success is getting there.
I think that's great.
So that was one of the things. I remember one time sitting in a meeting, and I think my face was turning red because I was so angry. They had brought in like one of these Boston consulting groups or Bain Cat, whatever, one of these organizations. I don't remember which one it was. But they walked in to try to tell me how to run my organization. And I was getting so upset because I was like, yeah, I know what I need to do.
They're not working there day to day.
They don't know.
It's amazing. They pay, these big companies pay, or used to. Now let's see what happens with AI, but they pay millions of dollars to these consulting companies that have, young analysts doing whatever, and they come in and tell everyone what to do. It's just interesting.
Right. So they came in and they were telling what to do. And I was like, this was a little earlier in my career. And I was getting really upset. And I saw my boss sitting there, like engaged, focused, like eating it up. And I was like getting angrier, And so after, she's like, so that didn't go very well. And I was like, I know, it's terrible. She's like, no, you didn't do well in that meeting. And here's why. She's like, you have to know, what are you trying to accomplish? What does success look like? The leadership wants us to use these people and engage them. They're paying all this money to them. So we need to extract what we can from these people and help make our organization better. They're not going to know everything, but they know something. There'll be some piece of information that's very valuable that's going to help us. And I was like, that's a different perspective. Maybe I should have had that perspective. And so, I learned all these different things on there's greatness in everything. You can learn from every person in the world, even if you don't like them or you don't like what they're saying. There's always nuggets of gold in everything. And so just listening, truly listening, you'll learn from everybody. And if your perspective is, I know better, you shut down. You're not actually listening. And so, I had to really change the way I thought about things and the way I did things.
Wow. I love that is really interesting. And also, I'm sure a big part of what's taken you into the second chapter of your life. So during this time that you were at Abbott, your husband was working in a dental office. And so let's get to the story of how you had this incredible opportunity, this career that you've built, the sacrifices that you make, which we're going to get to. And he's working, and where's his story at in parallel to yours?
So he's growing his career, he's growing his skill set. And he gets to a point in time where he decides he's gonna buy his own practice. And we always knew that was an end goal.
Was that what success looked like?
Yeah, at a point in time, yes. Yeah. Success was definitely he was going to have his own practice. We always had these dreams of doing something together. But as my career was taking off and his career was taking off, it was we weren't really sure what that looked like. So once I kind of got to the point where I was running this very large organization and he was running his practice, he was a little frustrated with the fact that his practice wasn't what he wanted. The team he was working with, to be honest, they weren't nearly the caliber that he deserved. If you looked at the quality of what he was doing versus the quality of the team around him, it wasn't on the same page. But what's very interesting in dentistry is the person who owns the practice is also the person who does the work all day. So you sit there and you treat patients and you do work all day, and then you're supposed to also hire and fire and pay the bills and do everything.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a really interesting business model because it feels like it's missing a CEO.
Yeah.
It's missing someone who's actually going to run the business.
That's probably for every private practice,
right? There's so many challenges around that. And you see in the industry of dentistry, there's so many of these corporate dentistries that are starting up so that dentists don't have to run don't have to run the day-to-day practice. They could just do the dentistry. The problem is you then start to have issues.
You're working for someone else.
Right. You're working for someone, but you also have issues where the dental business is not being run by a doctor, and you really want healthcare run by a doctor. Like, you don't want conflicts of interest. You truly want you want the person who owns the business to be the person who's taking care of you. So he would come home and we would talk about some of this stuff.
Did you guys even have time to talk? I mean, you're like, he's running his business, you're running your business. You probably have 3 kids by now. Like,
I don't know. We always made time for that.
Yeah.
We always made time for it, or we tried. So we would talk about this, and then we would sort of dream about like, oh, could we create something really special? For years we talked about the dream of working together and making, something really, really special. But I was a little nervous to lose my big corporate salary and my big benefits, and I was nervous. I was just scared. So at some point, we just decided, I think I was at the point where I was ready for a change. Running the large organization, the politics in corporate America, the red tape of like trying to get things accomplished. It's just a lot of inertia, a lot of energy to get things done in huge organizations. And I think, it was like 18 years I was in that world, and I was like, I think I'm ready for something a little more entrepreneurial, a little bit. I want to take like all these skills I developed and I want to like work on something that's mine. So I started feeling that way a little bit more. And he was like, I need to change the way I'm doing things. I want something different. And so we decided like, let's do this. And so we took the plunge. Best decision I ever made. And then we started working together and really starting to build something special. We had a dream of making something that created a totally different experience for patients. And we built a brand new facility, ground up construction, and made something that is totally different and is really not out there. And something that, we feel like we're able to change people's lives every day by the type of dentistry we're able to do and accomplish in a world that is so different and comfortable for patients. And so I get that warm fuzzy of like, hey, we changed a life today. So I love that. I get to lead a team, and it's a team of like the most incredible people. And I get to work with my husband.
Okay, so many questions there, right? So as you're talking, I remember one of my kids went for, I think, a cleaning, and I'm going to Dr. Stein for a cleaning. And I remember her coming home, I'm pretty sure, but they came home and they said, oh my gosh, there was this water, and like, they're like, this was like so different than any other experience they ever had. They just like talked about it like for like days about, I can't remember, it was like that they had water when we came in, there were massage chairs, there was this, there was that. They're like, it was so relaxed, it was so cool. I'm never going back to like the other dentist. Like, I could never go back. And then slowly, like the rest of us, started to go. But even before you moved into the new building, it was really this, like you were elevating the experience of like the association of going to the dentist is like cringe, and like the pink chairs, and like, oh, like I remember the Playmobil, the dentist chair looks like that certain way, and the walls, and it's like, oh, it's like the nightmare of going. And you already, even before that, started to create this shift of, it doesn't have to be that way. There could be an elevated experience of going to the dentist, which was so cool, I know, as patients, to be able to experience that. And then, of course, like this vision and what you guys have done with the new building, which feels like you're walking into a spa. Just the whole entire feel of it, everything about it is such a wonderful experience that even like the people who are most scared and, have so much trauma of the dentist could like go there and have a positive experience. But I'm curious if like that vision of what you have today was like when you left your job, Was it like that's what success looks like? Was that the goal at the time? Or was it sort of this journey of you went and you did it together, you made some changes and you're like, we could keep doing more? Or is there even something more we don't know about yet that's like really what success is? As you kind of going back to your advice of like, it's where do you want to get to? And you got to be flexible about how you get there. It could be plan A, plan B, or plan C.
I think that's a great question. So, I remember when I was at AbbVie, my goal in life from the time that I graduated college was I want to be a director of engineering in a manufacturing facility.
Were you very like, as a kid, always like, this is my goal and I'm going to hit it? Like very like,
I was
like everyone knew if Deena puts her mind to it, it's going to happen?
I was pretty driven. Okay. Yeah, I was pretty driven. So
that's you saying it last. Okay.
so I became the director of engineering.
Yeah.
And I did that for a couple of years. And then I was like, wait a minute, what do I do now? This was my goal. This was my life goal, was to be a director of engineering. And then you kind of have to like take a step and say, okay, that was my initial goal, right? So what's my new goal? And so I would say I would apply that really exactly to the way things were when I left and I came to the Stein Center. It was truly like, what is our goal for the next 3 to 5 years, right? And so putting that plan together and putting that vision together. And then as you start to accomplish things, you change it a little bit because you learn more. One of the big things we always wanted to do is to be cutting edge. That was always important. So technology is constantly changing. Dentistry is constantly changing. So how you do things changes so much. There's so much automation today. There's so many things that have changed. And so I didn't even know that those things were possible when I started. And now it's like, that's just the standard of how we operate. So I would say on the clinical end of things, that's where AbbVie is like the lead, and he is, doing all the digital dentistry and the 3D printing and all that sort of stuff. That's his thing. And he's constantly pushing for excellence and constantly pushing to do the next greatest thing. So with all of that, you create more patient comfort, less anxiety, more efficiency, so you could do things quicker. The less time a patient's in the chair, the happier they are. Yeah. And so he really leads that end of it. And then I do it on more of like the business end of things. So how do we operate more efficiently? What's our marketing strategy? How do we do digital marketing? How do we, can we do online booking? And all of those sorts of things. All that stuff has changed so much. You used to not be able to do any of that. And now we are able to do so much of that. And so those are the things where it's like constantly changing. And so as we learn more and as we see more, our goals are constantly changing. So I don't know what success looks like in 10 years.
Wow. Okay. I don't know. It's kind of built on one that, so here's what's interesting. There's a theme, right? The theme that I hear is like you're obviously very determined, very goal-oriented, but you're also willing to take risks. I mean, you took some really big risks. You took risk, like, first of all, even just going on a corporate career with the life that, I think a lot of girls think that that's off the table for them, especially if they're within a community and they want to have a family, that it's not an option to go be, the director of engineering in a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical company is not even something they think is possible. And clearly you did, and you've done that. And then to leave that type of career to take the risk as an entrepreneur that you hadn't clearly been without the infrastructure. And then to build your own building and to take a chance on something that nobody else has done in dentistry before. You guys are like the model of that. I mean, that's a lot of risk. So I'm curious, like, what's your risk tolerance, and what story do you tell yourself that allows you to do and to take the risks that you've had and to kind of get to where you are? So
it's so funny because I'm pretty risk averse.
Maybe not,
if you ask a lot of people, I'm pretty risk averse. I think it's when I believe in something, and I believe that I've seen the results of like a full mouth transformation for a patient that was in a really bad place, and they were completely rehabilitated and now live a life where they can eat and chew and function and smile. And I think, I'm married to the person who does it. So over the years, I've seen what he's done to change people's lives. And so I believed in it in my heart. I knew he could do it. And so I knew that he could really make a difference. And I wanted to be a part of that. It was like unbelievable. The amount of like, even just today, a letter from a patient, just, you've changed my life, and what that means to that person. So I think when you have data and history of we can do this, then it's less risky. I think if, I didn't believe in my heart, and I don't say it as an emotional belief, it was like a data-driven belief that we could really do this and be able to make a difference. That's where like that risk profile, it's like, I don't think it's such a huge risk because I know what can be done. And then, we have other dentists that are also incredible and can do amazing work. And I've seen their work and I've seen what they do. And I've seen the patient that walks in that, lived in the dental office, and then they come to us and we like rehabilitate them, and then they just come for their cleanings and they're just so appreciative. And so when you see that and you have the data, then it's like, it's not risky.
Okay. So maybe that's helpful to understand how you think about it. Like that's what is like kind of your risk benefit sort of profile, is certain element of control that you feel that you have over the situation. But I would say like the building your own building, right? So it's one thing that you left fine and you were in a building, but like that's a multi-million-dollar project to build your own building, and also to do something in a way that like no one else has ever proven to be profitable. So that's still like a pretty big risk. And I guess you just kind of did the risk benefit, and you saw, like, you knew that you could do the work, that he could do it, but you didn't necessarily know that you could figure out, or did you do all those numbers very much ahead of time to be like, okay, we could build a multi-million-dollar building and we can increase our patients by X amount. We could, do these different services. And this, like, were you very focused on the numbers and that's what gave you the confidence? Like, walk us just through.
Of course. So we definitely, there was, we knew we needed more space. So it wasn't, the option was, do we expand in our current location?
Which was a leased space.
Which was a leased space, which had availability next to us. So we had the ability to expand. And then we, or do we build our own? So that was the option. So we did pretty extensive analysis between those two options. We also have advisors. Like, I definitely have outside people. We have our accountants. We have business people that we work with and consult with to get opinions as well that are in the dental field, that have worked with multiple practices, that advised us. What I actually found was pretty funny. We had 3 different advisors. 2 of them I was very impressed with, and one I was like, he's too small-minded for me. And we went, that was just like how I felt. Like he didn't think big. He didn't think strategic. He was just very like technical. And so we went to all 3 of these with the scenario. And 2 of the 3 said, build the building based on your numbers and what you can do. You should build the building. The one who was a little more small-minded and technical said, do not build the building. And so we took the advice, and I never really liked that advisor that we had, but I always thought it was good to have different ideas and different perspectives. And so then we had to make a decision. And so we took all the advice, we took all the information, and then we talked and we decided we're going to do it. And, but we had a lot of advice and we did a ton of analysis. Like I did a ton.
It's still bold. Like, I mean, I know you're risk averse, but you still like, you went bold. And I feel like what where it's coming from is a place of confidence, which is a great thing, a confidence in, AbbVie as a dentist, and a confidence in yourself, that the 2 of you as a team, with the operational side and the actual healthcare, practice could actually come together, and which you are, which is amazing. And like, you guys are an incredible team, so I want to ask a little bit about that, because I think that especially right now, there's a major trend in Lakewood where a lot of women who started by supporting their husbands because they were learning in chinuch, and they built different businesses. And then at the point where they've learned for a while and the business is growing, that the husband comes and joins the business with their wife. And it's obviously maybe a different dynamic in here. Your husband is the dentist and he's providing the service and you're the CEO running all the operational side, but it's still a dynamic between a husband and wife, like having to really partner together, work together, have a balance, like who's in charge of what. So maybe share a little bit, especially since you started with just completely different careers. What were the amazing things about it and what are some of the challenges with it?
Yeah. Okay. The first thing I do want to say is I also think anytime you're making decisions, bold decisions, a lot of it is siyata d'shmaya. Really, you do the best you can, but really it's, no matter how much we believe in ourselves and that, it's what's meant to be is meant to be. So I think
a little bit of emunah bitachon.
Exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of emunah bitachon. So I think that's a piece of it that also makes it so that you could do those things because you're okay, I have emunah and that I think this is going to work out. So that's kind of one thing. Working with my husband. We work together, but we're very parallel, meaning I don't see him all day. So I will see him, let's say, maybe 3 times a day, maybe 4 times a day. So I don't work with him all day long in the same room. Okay, so that I think is a huge difference. I think that could pose a lot of challenges. I don't know how healthy I would say working with your husband all day long would be. But I think the way we have it set up, it's incredible because we both believe in each other and what we're doing. And so there's total confidence and trust. So he doesn't have to worry about anything on my end and I don't have to worry about anything on his end because I know he's got it.
So you're each really handling very different parts of the business.
Correct. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I think that's why it works so well is because we're not in each other's faces all the time. Because I think that could be hard when you're it's home and work is just so intermingled. Now, our home and work is pretty intermingled. But I also don't feel like I got the job because I was the wife. And I think that is a big difference is that if, let's say I was home with the kids for 18 years and then I decided I wanted to go into business. I don't know that I would have the skill set to run a large operation. I went through a ton of training. I talked about it earlier. And I think that's what makes it so that I could do the job. So I think you have to have the skill set to do the job. And I think that's a huge thing is that if you walk into a role of running a business and you know nothing about business, you're going to frustrate each other because you don't have the skill set to do the job. So I think you need to make sure you gain that skill set. And whether that's through training or experience and just, again, knowing where you are and what your skill set is makes a huge difference in being able to say, can I accomplish this position? So you can't just walk in and run an organization with no experience.
Did you guys, when you first decided to work together, did you kind of have a upfront conversation of, okay, here's the structure of how we're going to work if we have a disagreement? This is how, did you kind of put rules or boundaries or frameworks in place? Or are there frameworks now that help to do that? Or
we tried.
Yeah.
We tried. We tried. We said, we're not going to talk about work at home. We talk about work at home.
Yeah.
We try not to talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
But we do talk about work at home. It is a passion of ours. So, it is part of who we are.
Something. That's the thing. You're partners in building your family and you were partners in building your business. And, it's interesting because I think that for a lot of women who and couples that even if they're not directly in the same business, but they're both in business and they're both enjoy business and they're passionate, it's something they both enjoy. They're partners in essence, something they can talk about. And it's okay, that's such a positive thing, I think, because it's something you can share, where a lot of times if there's not a connection where the husband and wife don't know so much or they don't share that common passion about whatever career or whatever it is, then they come up with other things that obviously they both enjoy talking about, but it creates something. But then the question sometimes is, okay, that partnership there and then the partnership in the home, because then it's okay, the room of being husband and wife, right? Which is, so it's such a fine balance, I think, for so many people to, even couples that are partners in the home, it's still different than the relationship of husband and wife. So what do you guys do to just be able to kind of have that amazing relationship as partners, partners in the business, partners at home, but then also how do you leave for the husband and wife side of it?
So, I think it just takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and it's making sure to value each one of those relationships and put time into each one of those relationships. So The work, we invest in while we're at work. The relationship between us is mostly outside of work, but like we've made a lot of conscious decisions. Like we make sure that we spend time together outside of work, and have time just alone, the two of us. I mean, people talk like, the date night. I mean, now our kids are a little out of the house, so we have a lot of date nights and we have a lot of like.
What are the date nights like? Talking about things in the business? Or is it like, okay, we're going to something fun and we're just gonna have fun together?
So we go fun places, we go, we do activities. We do stuff. Like
AbbVie's like really fun. He is like, as he drove up in his muscle car the other day, like so loud, you're like, oh my gosh. But he's like, he has his toys. Like
he likes
he's
to
fun.
have fun. He likes to have fun. We went, we did like this darts place and we do activities.
Great.
Like, he loves racing and race cars. We'll go to racing simulators and we'll just do stuff. And we'll do activities that we both like. He's more the activity person, so I'm happy to really kind of do whatever he wants. I don't
as long as he plans it, right? Like someone has to be the planner in the family.
yes. So I'm happy to kind of go with the flow a little bit, but it takes work.
Yeah.
It takes work. It's a lot of work to make sure that all those different relationships stay strong. And
what about the kids? Let's talk about that a little bit, because obviously it's for all of us to have careers, especially when so much of your career was in corporate where you don't have flexibility of your time. Like a lot of times what's so nice as an entrepreneur, as you see, you own your own time. You have a huge amount of responsibility that you take home, but you own your own time. So first, those are both questions I think I have is like, how does it feel, the trade-off of working in corporate? So it's like someone else's responsibility, but that you're structured, you have to be in certain places, you have your absolute time off that you can take versus like having your own business and that contrast. And then let's answer that. And then I want to ask about the kids.
So I would say, I think I thought that I didn't have a lot of flexibility when I was in corporate, but I actually did. And I think I would, like, there was at one point in my career when I was having my third kid and I was like, I just can't do this anymore. So I went to my boss and I said, I appreciate this opportunity. I love the job. I have too much going on. I just had my third kid and we're new to Chicago and I just have too much going on. And he said, why don't you work part-time until you get everything in your life more settled? And I was like, that's an option? He's like, yeah, I'd like you to work part-time. Would that work for you? And I said, yeah, I'd love to work part-time. And I did. And I worked part-time for a while in corporate. I couldn't have the same opportunities because I couldn't take certain positions. Like I couldn't be in a leadership role because you need to be present, but I was able to do an independent contributor role. And I did like this process improvement, business excellence role for a couple of years. And it was great. And it was really great. And it was the company was willing to work with me. I was always the one that left work to go pick up my kids if they had an issue, even though I was in a corporate job. Having great help is like huge. Yeah. But I told myself I didn't have flexibility, but when push came to shove, I did. And so I think being more open-minded about understanding what flexibility you actually do have. And if you do your job and you work hard and you add value where you're at, that's what companies want. They want people that are going to work hard and make a difference. And so does that mean you're there for 8 hours or 10 hours or 7 hours? Like I was happy to not take a long lunch and get my stuff done and leave a little bit earlier.
Did they give you a hard time when you have to leave early for Shabbos or for Yontif?
No, I didn't have a hard time. I really didn't in that regard. I worked with some really incredible people. And I think a lot of corporations are like that. I can't say everyone, but my experience was very positive when it came to respecting my personal life and respecting my kids and what I needed. And I did have opportunities. So I just, when I look back at it, I have a very positive view of my experience there.
But it's also, I talk about this a lot, is like you built your career around your life. You had a certain life and your priorities and the career kind of fit around it, which means, right, you may not be wind up being the vice president because that required, but you could still be really successful and have both. So let's talk about that. Like I think a lot of people, you and I have talked about this, like, guilt or, how it is for our kids, to grow up. Like when you look back and you kind of think about it from your kids' perspective, or now that they're all older, like what they might tell you. And you have all boys. So it's like, obviously, I'm sure there's like, and I know there's like a tremendous amount of respect from your boys as to like what you've done. But why don't you share a little bit about what you think that experience was, and some of the things that you felt like you did really well, and some of the things you learned that you'd probably do different?
My kids. I love them. They're amazing. I don't know. It's a little bit like, it's a little tough when I look back. Do I wish I was around more? Do I think they all turned into some pretty incredible people? Yes. So I don't know. Like they're awesome in many respects. They're very independent children. They're not needy. And
I love your youngest, where already once in high school, and it's like, okay, what's dinner? Like, he's got the credit card. And once he's got the card, it's like he's ordered whatever, he's got it. He's like, he's doing his Uber Eats, like dinner's taken care of for him. You're gonna figure out you and AbbVie, he's got it.
Yes.
Like which is great. Like that, he's really, they're all independent, but like, yeah, he's super independent.
Yeah, they're very independent children, and they always knew that I was there for them whenever they needed me. So they always knew I would drop everything for them. So I think that, definitely is important, is that, for kids to know that they're number one, even though maybe I wasn't home like by 4:00 every day. They came home to a babysitter, but they did great. And, if I go back, would I want to be home then? I don't know, maybe. But it wasn't in the cards for me at the time. And
what do they tell you now?
I think they see that a woman could work, and it's totally possible and doable. I think they're proud of me. I think it's so different now because we have so much flexibility now, because we run our own business. So it's just so different than when they were growing up.
And actually, in many ways, and you and I talk about this, that adult children need you so much more than little children, because little children, you could put them with a babysitter, or they could go to daycare or whatever. That's what do they need. But as adults, they really need, you're the only one that they call. Like we joke about, we go out to dinner together and my daughter's calling me, your son's calling you. We're like, because when they call and how much time our adult children really think, we're so lucky that we have those relationships with them in that way that they call us. But now is when they really need you.
Right.
If you were in your corporate job and they're calling you all day, that would be much harder.
Yeah. So I think, I guess I would say, like, I don't think my children would go back and say, hey, I wish my mom was home. Because I think they did well.
Yeah.
They were loved and knew they were loved. I think the question I have is, would I have wanted to be around more? So it's more of a, like, did I missed something that I would have wanted to be home more for, not that they missed out.
I really appreciate that, because I think that their life kind of is, because youngs just sort of combined in one particular, like they don't think about the different moments, but you do. Like I remember at one point when we brought our outside investors in, and like we felt like we needed to move to downtown office that was always in Skokie, which was 10 minutes from my house, 5 minutes from my kids' school. And when we brought in the big investment, that we were a tech company in Chicago, how could we not be downtown? And this is already many years ago, before COVID. And like the idea of going downtown meant an hour drive in the morning and leaving very early in the morning. And it was something I really didn't want to do. And was just sort of the story that was told was, if you want to be a successful tech company and you want to attract the talent to be able to grow, and you're now took outside investments and therefore you're on that track of very fast growth, then you need to be downtown. And I was like, that was like a sacrifice that I really made. And it was such a struggle for me because I wanted to be home by 4. And I would leave the city at 3, but that meant I had to get there really early. And for a period of time, like I wasn't getting my kids off in the morning. They have no recollection. Like it was a short time because I was like this isn't working for me, and had to kind of figure it out from there. But it felt personally like such a huge sacrifice. They don't really remember it. And to them, I was like always there, which is like great. I was always there. But to me, when I look back, I was like, I wish I never did that. Like I didn't need to do that, and I could have done it differently. And it was because that's the story that I was told that this is, and I have a lot of those in building my tech company of, if you want to build a fast-growing tech company, this is the playbook, and this is the playbook that works, and you've got to fit yourself into the playbook. And it took me a long time and to continue to build my confidence as a female tech CEO with venture back was, no, I could do it my way, and I could write a different playbook and still be successful. But that was like not so easy. And so I look back at that for me personally, and it was on me. So I appreciate what you're saying is like, would you want something different? The kids probably don't even remember the difference. Like we each have our like very hard years and our very major sacrifices that I feel like we maybe would do different, but that's also part of that journey makes us who we are now, right? That pain, that like going through something hard, it makes you appreciate something different, right? So we can't go back. We live our life, it gets us where we are, but they're difficult times.
Yeah, I think like you hit on such a huge point of that, like everybody says you have to do something a certain way, or like in order to accomplish this, it has to be done this way. Like it goes back to that, there's the plan A and the plan B, there's always another way to do it. And it doesn't mean it's the wrong way. And in fact, it might be better. And so those are the things that I just feel like when I was earlier in my career, like I didn't feel like I could do that. I didn't feel like I can do it, like not the way that's standard or not the way that's expected. Whereas now it's like, wait, why not? Why can't we do that? What's the reason why? And if somebody doesn't have a good reason, it's like, okay, let's try it. Let's see how it goes. And that's one of the beauties of entrepreneurship and having your own company is you don't need to go through the corporate red tape. You don't need to put together massive presentations. You could have a conversation and you could be so nimble and say, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, we can go back to the way it was. But there's so many things that you can accomplish by just trying something different. And then if it doesn't work, go back. It's no harm.
And when you look back at your career, what would you say was like the most difficult thing for you to be able to get through?
So from a career standpoint?
Or personal, like whatever, like because they're combined, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a journey.
So it was really, really scary when I left my job. I think it was in 2019. And then COVID hit. And we had to shut down the dental office. So I would say that was one of the times that was pretty stressful because we sort of put everything this was our business now. That was it. And it was closed for an undetermined period of time. And that was hard. That was really hard.
What got you through it?
I think Emunah Bitachon.
Yeah.
That was it. It was like, you know what? We're going to somehow get through this. We made the decisions that we could make to do everything that we could do so that, we could stay afloat. Thank God it worked out.
Was there ever a time that you like really almost quit, but you pushed through?
So that's the thing about entrepreneurship that's interesting is you can't really quit. So I feel like when I was in my corporate career, like if I had a really bad day, or like I kind of told you in the beginning of my career was really hard, you could always go home with that, like, hey, I could quit. Like I don't have to work here. I can get another job. When it's your own business, like there's really no walking away.
Yeah.
I guess in concept you could sell your business, but like when you put your heart and soul into something, you're not really looking to sell it. When it's like who you like, your whole business. Obviously at some point you sell your business. I would say that's something that is like in my mind, I was always able to say, I can walk away if I want.
So now it's like, this is it. We're doing it.
No, we're doing it. Yeah. So you have one of those days when you're like, I'd love to do something else. You're like, I can't.
What would you tell your younger self?
Don't always believe what everyone says. And find the people that are your people. Find people that you connect with and find mentors.
What was your most exciting moment?
I would say like operating in our new building was pretty incredible.
Was it the ribbon ceremony or was it the first patient? What was like?
I think it was honestly like a couple weeks in.
Yeah.
And just being like, there was this vision of creating something special. And then like having a patient walk in and sort of verbalize like what they were experiencing and it being what our vision was. So that it matched what we were trying to accomplish. Sometimes you
it's like the reality.
Yeah.
Like we did it. It's like we did.
Right. You strive for something, but then like you have that moment of like, yes, we accomplished what we wanted to.
I totally appreciate that, because I had that when we built this software for Fortune 500 companies, and our biggest client that we took a huge chance on was like a Fortune 1 company, and years into, and we had to build it as a global payment solution, even including China, which is completely insane. And we're like, yeah, we're going to do it. Like, cause that was how we needed to get the contract. So it's like, we're going to do it. We believed in ourselves. We could do it. And then I remember still my big moment. I remember sitting in the meeting in Austin with them at the table with like some of the people that were there that were like the biggest ones that were like hard to like kind of get to go along with it. And I appreciated that they put risk in their careers to like take a chance on a software company that still had to build the solution that they were putting forth, and it was going to be either a career builder or career buster for our sponsors there. And sitting at the table with like the business unit that with our client, and them saying like, this is great, like it worked, like it was years, like basically like you did it, you know,
right.
Like, and it was like that moment I was like everything was like that. That's how I like think of that turning moment. That's sitting in that chair.
It's like there's not necessarily fanfare. It's just that realization that you have when it's like, okay, we had set out for this goal and it took years to accomplish, you know, and then you're like,
you did it.
We did it.
That's
and then
awesome.
It's like that. I would say for sure from a career perspective. The other thing was pretty cool was my oldest son decided to go more into engineering. And so I thought it was cool that to have a son who wanted to do more like my career path versus my husband's. I thought that was cool because it's like, that's kind of cool. You know, you want to do more what your mom does than what your dad does.
And I think your husband gave up on any of the other boys.
Yes, correct.
But
Correct.
we'll see what happens with the practice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you see as your purpose?
I love helping people. Whether it's my kids, whether it's my family, whether it's our patients, whether it's our employees. I love helping people. And when our employees are able to buy a home and get a mortgage because they work in our practice, that gives me joy and that gives me purpose. When we change a patient's life and now they could eat and they look beautiful, have a beautiful smile, that's the purpose. When I'm able to be there for my kids when they need me, when I could just do whatever is needed for them, that's when I feel happy. And my relationship with my husband, you know, being able to be partners with him in everything is so great. So I just like to make everyone around me happy.
And what would you say is like the best piece of advice that you ever got?
Don't limit yourself. Like, I think we are we put the greatest roadblocks in front of ourselves. We are the only ones who are in our way.
I love that. And I think with that, like surrounding yourself by people who build you up to go beyond what you think, you know, anyone who's around you who's trying to limit you, you really gotta, you know, question that. Be around the people that are going to encourage you to think big, do big, be bold, right? You've got one life to live. Go for it.
Right.
You know, sometimes those things are really hard. As I was talking about when we came in, they're like the fires that I'm putting out because I've made some very bold decisions and risks that take a lot of work, and I questioning it. Oh my gosh. But like, nope, you know what? We're going to figure it out and we're going to do it. All right. I want to wrap us by just, you know, sharing, because I know a lot of women, they listen, and especially women that are very, very busy in a career, and we both appreciate it, that it is so important and so nice to also take time for friends. And I know I'm talking with my oldest daughter, who is just at a stage with, you know, 4 young kids, and her, you know, her husband same path, like just starting residency, and she's busy working, and it's very hard. But I think that I feel like I've been so lucky to have friends, like really good friends, and, you know, group of my good friends and going out to the movie with tonight, and, you know, good friends like that I can share both like my business, you know, like passion and experience, and also connect on a personal level. And friendships take work. But I think a lot of women are very lonely, especially women that are working are very lonely. And I would just like, you know, from the experience that we both have, I would just encourage, you know, life does go fast, and yes, you're busy with your kids and your family and you stretch yourself, but you don't have to have tons of friends. But if you're fortunate enough to be able to have just a few really close, good friends that, as we talk about, like they accept you for everything that you are. If you can't call them for 2 months, they're going to talk to you in 2 months and be like, pick up right where you left off, that there's no drama. And they really, it's not conditional, it's an unconditional friendship and relationship. And that is such a fulfilling, I know for me, it's such a fulfilling part of my life. And so this is so fun that I get to interview one of my best friends. I appreciate one of my best friends, Shira. I've told her I'd give her a call out because every single time before I do a podcast, I'm like taking pictures and doing video. I'm like, how does the outfit look? Where's my jewelry? So, and just all the amazing friends that, both of us have. I just think that that's like an important part to invest in. And I think that if I really was only able to start doing that probably around, I would say 38, 39, maybe, I would say, like, I think that if I didn't, and I would have missed out on something really big. And you can get so busy in life with so many responsibilities, but I would have missed out if I didn't invest and have the friends that I have.
I would agree with you. I think it's just, you don't need a million. You just need a couple. And so I think investing in a couple friendships is where it's so important.
All right. Thank you, Deena, so much for doing this. Such a great story. So inspiring, so unique, so bold. And thanks for sharing it.
Thank you, Talia.
This episode was made possible by our friends at Roth & Co. We are grateful for their continued partnership. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and that you'll join us for the next one. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch this conversation on YouTube, so be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until we meet again, stay inspired to lead.